Hi, in this video we're going to transform that match data into the league table using the R open source language. I've already written the R script here. You can see it. We're in an environment called RStudio, and what we're going to do is we're going to execute each step at a time, and we're going to look at the intermediate results so we can see exactly how it's going to be built up. If you want to follow on later on, then I've got details about how to install RStudio and R and where to get the data files and the R script from at the end of the video and also in the comments below. Let's get started. Let's start by referencing a couple of packages that we want to use. Tidyverse is in fact a group of packages including dplyr, which we'll use a lot, that is to shape and transform our data, and ggplot, which we're not going to use in this session, which is all about making beautiful charts. We're also going to bring in readexcel, which basically does what it says, it reads Excel files. So let's bring those in. The first thing that we're going to do is align to have a variable which points to the file path of where I've stored the Excel sheet which contains the match data. If you're running it yourself, obviously you want to change that line. So now I've got that variable, we can see it up here in our environment. I'm going to do our first interesting statement, which is calling this function, which is from the readexcel library, which will take a we'll go to that Excel file and we'll load the match tab sheet into a data set called match full. So if I run that, what we can see is that we've got match full there. It's basically got the match data as we've seen it before. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose just a few columns that we need from that match full data set. So the columns that we need are the date, we need the home team, the away team, and the home and away goals. What I'm doing is I'm selecting just those columns and I'm also renaming them. One thing we can do with R is we can just come along and highlight a certain section and run it. So what I've done is I've run it and I've got the results down here in the command window. And what's that saying is start with the match full data, which we've just seen, that 278 rows by 23 columns and 288 rows, and then this pipe operator, best to read it as then select the columns, the date column, select the home space team column and call it home team, and ditto with the other columns. This is R's assignment operator. So when we include that line in, it's going to assign that, instead of putting it into the command window below, it's going to assign it to a data set called match. So again, if we run that, what we'll see is that we have got match. Let me run that again. What we've got match here, and it's got, if I click on it and we have a look at it as well, it's basically got those 5 columns. Okay, and we can use a couple of functions. If we want to quickly have a look at it, glimpse just shows us the column names and the first few values. Head will just show us the first few rows. That's an alternative to looking at it in the environment window. Right, we're ready to do our first step, and which is to split that data up. So we're going to create a table called home stats. We're starting with the match data, and then we're going to select the date, the home team, and we're going to rename it to team, the away team, which becomes the opposing team from the home team's point of view, and goals for and goals against. So again, we can just run it here without the assignment to look at what the results that we'll get, and then we can assign it to home stats, which I'll do there. I'm going to run the same thing for a new table dataset called away stats. Notice we've got slightly different logic here. This time the team becomes the away team and the goals for become the away goals, and so on. So that's just looking at it from the away team's point of view, and I've run that. Now you can see I've got home stats and I've got away stats. Those are the 2 tables that we've created. Let's go back to that and let's have a look at our next one, which is to just combine those 2 tables together. We're appending them, we're stacking them one on top of each other. We're using the union function, and we're saying take the home stats table, then union on the away stats. So when I do that, we've got a variable called team stats that's now got the 576 rows in. There we go, 2 rows for each game. Good. Now the next step is to calculate those, add those extra columns. So again, we start off with our team stats, and mutate is the function, the verb that's going to create the extra columns for us. We're going to create a column called result, and it's going to be the result of this statement. Basically, if the goals for, we've got an if statement here, is greater than the goals against, then the result is a win. Otherwise, if they're equal, then it's a draw, and otherwise it's going to be a loss. The same thing we can do with the points, except now we can use the result column that we've just created, and we say if it's a win, then you get 3 points. Otherwise, if it's a draw, then 1 point. Otherwise, you're going to have to be lost, and you get 0. And similar logic for won, drawn and lost. So let's just run that, and we'll have a look. What we've done is we've updated team stats there, so have a look at it. Now it's got a lot more variables, and it's got all these columns that we hadn't seen before, result through to lost. Now we've got the detail, and all we need to do now is group it up. The league table is a kind of performance summary per team. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table called league table. We start off with our team stats that we've just created, and then we're going to group it by team. And as we group it by team, we're going to aggregate all those other columns in some way. So the played value is really the number of games played, and there's a function here n which basically does a count. And all the other columns are really the sum of the underlying column. So 1 is the sum of the 1, because it's 1 for a 1 and 0 if not. So let's run that from this point all the way just to the end of our ungroup. And what I've done is I've started here so that I've not assigned it to the league table yet, so it's reflected in the command window. And what we can see, we've got a basic league table with most of the columns there. What we need to do, as well as just a couple of things, now we've got the goals for and goals against at the team level. We can calculate the goal difference simply as the difference between those two. And finally, we want to order it, first of all, in descending order of points, highest to lowest, and then if there's a tie in the points, highest to lowest by goal difference. So we'll now run the whole thing, including the assignment, to get a table called a league table, and we'll look at that, and that is our final table, our result, our league table. If you would like to follow through what I've done in your own time, then here's how you get the resources. There's a link to this course folder in the description. Basically what it's got here is 3 files that you need. The first is this spreadsheet that contains the match data set. Then there's the R script that we've just been running here. And finally there's a link to this PDF called Getting Started in R and SQL that has a link to how you can download the R and RStudio software. So for example, we can click on one of the links and come to, first of all, download the R software. That takes not very long. And then I would recommend using an IDE called RStudio Desktop. It's absolutely wonderful, and they have a free open source license. You can download that. If, as many people you can't install on your laptop, maybe because it's a work laptop and it's locked down. Another thing that you can do instead is go to RStudio Cloud, and that's a complete cloud version of RStudio and that's really great. It's free at the moment, it's experimental at the moment, but it's a really good resource for learning. In other videos, we're going to be implementing the same thing in SQL, also in Python, also using Power BI Desktop to do it in M, the language of the query editor, and also in DAX. I hope you join us for one of those. I hope you even can join us for one of our online meetings every Monday during the lockdown period, 1 o'clock, and every repeated at Tuesday at 7. Hope to see you at one of those. Thank you for watching.